You were told the sperm whale is the largest toothed predator alive, 60 feet of muscle, a mile down in the black, hunting giant squid. Untouchable. Here's the part nobody puts in the documentary. Something in the Atlantic hunts it back, not folklore, not one bad photo, scar tissue on the animal itself, defensive formations biologists have filmed, and a pattern the record kept quietly stacking while the apex label stayed on the poster. One case carries the strongest physical evidence. One comes from witnesses you would never dismiss. And one rewrites what sperm whales evolved to fear at depth. Maybe you've watched every ocean documentary and never heard this framed the way it deserves. Maybe you're a diver, a captain, a marine biology student, or someone who spends afternoons on a whale watch boat off Cape Cod or the Azores. Maybe you've seen a fluke break the surface with strange parallel marks on it and wondered what could possibly reach a body that size. Whatever brought you here, the assumption we're about to test is one the textbooks quietly carried for decades. It says the sperm whale, once adult and fully grown, has no predator in open water. That assumption is the map. Nature moved. Start with the animal itself. A photo identification researcher cataloging individual sperm whales by the shape and scarring of their flukes is doing routine work. The catalog is the point. Each animal is a fingerprint. In Atlantic study sites, around the Azores, along the Gulf Stream, in Bahamian waters, the same rake mark pattern keeps showing up. Parallel scars, evenly spaced. Not one animal, not 10. A signature that repeats across a population. The first assumption is the obvious one. Sperm whales fight. Males clash over females. Cookie-cutter sharks take neat little cores of flesh. Ship propellers slice at surface swimmers. All of that is real, and all of it leaves scars. But cookie-cutter wounds are round, not linear. Prop scars are usually singular and mechanical. Fight wounds from other sperm whales rarely produce the clean parallel geometry you see in the photographs. What matches is Orca dentition, the spacing of the teeth, the angle of the rake, the way the marks curve as the mouth closes on a moving body. Here's the part the surface story doesn't say. The animal was the evidence for years. Nobody was asking what left the marks. The catalogue was built to identify individuals, not to interrogate what had bitten them. When researchers finally lined up the geometry, the answer had been on the whales' backs the whole time. Now consider what that means. If the scar is there, the animal survived it. Every marked whale in that catalogue is a survivor. Every fluke tells you the attack happened and the whale lived. So the frequency of scarring is not the frequency of predation. It's the frequency of the ones who lived long enough to be photographed. When you look at a scarred animal, ask what left the mark, not what could have, what did. That's a small habit, and it's the beginning of everything else in this video. The scars are one class of evidence. They can't tell you what the attack looked like. For that, you need witnesses. And this is where the case stops resting on a residue and starts resting on live observation. There's a defensive behavior sperm whales perform when they detect coordinated attack. The marguerite formation. The animals gather in a rosette, heads inward, tails outward, calves in the center. It looks like a flower. It also looks like exactly what you would design if you had to protect vulnerable animals from an intelligent, cooperative predator approaching from open water. The powerful flukes face out. The calves face nothing. You cannot invent that formation. It doesn't emerge from stress alone. Animals don't spontaneously arrange themselves into geometry that assumes an attacker will come from open water in coordinated numbers. The behavior exists because the pressure that shaped it existed. And it has been documented by researchers in Atlantic waters more than once when orcas appear on the horizon. The witnesses here are not folklore. They are marine biologists with cameras, publication records, and no incentive to fabricate. In some cases, they are whale watch operators whose livelihood depends on knowing what they're looking at. A charter captain who has spent 20 years on a specific patch of water will recognize a marguerite the way a ranch dog recognizes a coyote. When several of them describe the same behavior in the same waters when the same predator arrives, you're no longer looking at anecdote, you're looking at a pattern. Before we go further, this is a good place to pause. If you've ever seen a marine mammal with scars nobody explained, or heard a boat captain wave off predator marks as just old injuries, I genuinely want to read that story in the comments. The photograph, the location, the guide's exact words. It matters because the record we're describing here is built from small observations that were almost dismissed. Now the biology, because you can't understand what's happening in the Atlantic without knowing what an orca actually is. The killer whale is not one predator, it's a species split into ecotypes, and each ecotype is essentially a different animal wearing the same body. Some eat only fish, some eat only seals. Some specialize in sharks. One Pacific ecotype has been documented flipping great whites upside down to induce tonic immobility before killing them. Some, in different oceans, specialize in large whales. In the Atlantic, the picture is still being assembled. Orca populations there are smaller, more scattered, harder to survey than their well-studied Pacific counterparts. But the field record, photo ID work, stomach content analysis on stranded animals, direct observation from research vessels, is consistent with cooperative predation on cetaceans in specific Atlantic subregions. And the tactics that appear when observations do come in are the tactics you would expect. Isolate a calf, wear the adults down, target soft tissue, the tongue and throat primarily. The rest of the body they mostly leave. Here is the reframe. Sperm whales are large and dominant. Sperm whales are also, in specific waters, prey. Those two facts were never mutually exclusive. We assumed they were because size was the shortcut we used for hierarchy. Bigger animal, higher rank. That's the framework a child learns from a wall poster. It's not the framework that survives in an ocean where coordinated intelligence has been evolving for millions of years alongside brute mass. Ask yourself how much of what you learned about ocean hierarchy came from actual predation observation and how much came from length-to-length comparison in a textbook. My guess is most of it came from the poster. The last case is the one that changed how I read all the others. The marguerite formation appears in sperm whale populations that rarely encounter orcas today. That is a strange fact, and it's worth sitting with. A behavior that specific, calves in the center, flukes out, the coordinated turn as the group tightens, does not persist across generations without the pressure that carved it. Either it's innate, wired into the animal at a level below learning, or it's cultural, taught mother to calf across ocean basins. Either answer takes you to the same place. The behavior is old. It has been shaped over evolutionary time, which means sperm whales evolved with a predator they were afraid of. Not occasionally, not marginally, enough to build a defense that stays intact in animals that rarely see the attacker anymore. That is the sentence that reframes everything. The scars in the photo ID catalog are not the beginning of the story. They're the most recent chapter. The predator-prey relationship is older than the record we have of it. The Atlantic didn't invent this dynamic. It's where the current evidence is being assembled. And here is where I want you to slow down, because there's a version of this video that would tell you every scar is orca predation, every stranded sperm whale in the Atlantic was killed by a coordinated pod, and every fluke in the catalog is a survivor of a documented attack. That version would be wrong. Most sperm whales die of things we can identify and things we can't. Ship strikes, entanglement, disease, age, causes we may never sort out. Most scars have mundane explanations. A cookie cutter bite still looks like a cookie cutter bite. A propeller cut still looks like a propeller cut. The skeptical filter matters, and it dissolves a real percentage of the cases people bring forward as orca predation. Say that out loud, or the case doesn't survive an honest audit. But after every honest filter is applied, a specific residue remains. Rake mark geometry that matches orca dentition and nothing else. Marguerite formations documented in real time by biologists who know what they're watching. Ecotype work that keeps expanding what we know Atlantic orcas actually do. That residue is where the biological weight lives, and it doesn't dissolve no matter how skeptically you hold it. If you want to weigh this yourself, you don't have to trust a documentary. Look up published sperm whale photo ID catalogs from Atlantic study sites. Compare the rake mark spacing to Orca tooth spacing. The numbers are in the field literature. Read recent ecotype research directly, not the press release summarizing it. The evidence is public. The interpretation is what changes. So what do you do with any wildlife mystery claim after this? Ask the same questions the record forced on us here. What is the physical evidence, and can it be independently reproduced? Who is the witness, and what is their position? Is the behavior biologically plausible given what the species is and what the predator can do? What does the historical and evolutionary record say the animal should already be afraid of? What has quietly shifted in the field consensus over the last decade? And after every honest, skeptical filter has been applied, what specifically remains? The remaining piece is where you look, not the noise, the residue. The sperm whale you learned about in school was drawn from a partial view, largest toothed predator, deepest diver, hunter of giant squid, all true and all incomplete. The animal is also, in specific Atlantic waters, prey. Its own body carries the record of a predator relationship the poster never mentioned. The map you were given is a snapshot. The ocean is still moving. If a case like this changes how you look at the next scarred animal, the next unexplained stranding, the next apex predator claim, then the point of the video landed. If you want to see where this framework gets applied to another species whose reputation is quietly being revised, the next video is the place to start.